Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The 100, as well as the latest episode of Colony. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of The Originals, you can skip what I say about this week's episode of Colony. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of The Originals. A lot of interesting things. You have Klaus kind of basically, I love what he did. Basically, he went to each of the three different supernatural groups, the witches, the vampires, and the werewolves. Each one basically giving them all an ultimatum. You help me find Haley, or basically hell is going to rain down upon this city. And then basically Klaus ends up kidnapping three people, one person from each of the groups, and is holding them hostage. And, it actually comes out because it's an interesting thing because, Klaus plays the bad guy role because he needs to, because people won't listen to him unless he plays the fear role. That's the only way he's ever gotten people to, and that's always been his thing. Is it better to be feared or to be loved? But for him, it's the only way he can get results is he needs them to fear him because he needs to save Haley. Haley is part of his family, and he promised his daughter he would bring her mom back home, so he's doing whatever it takes. Because this also deals with the fact is that he is dealing with the whole Elijah situation, which he finally broke down and told Marcel that, which even Marcel was like, oh, I had no idea. Because, he could tell, something was bothering him. It's so what happened with that whole Elijah thing? But obviously, Klaus didn't tell anyone about it. But he confided in Marcel, which Marcel's kind of I'm your friend in this situation. Just let me help you out with this. Because you even found that message written in most likely Haley's blood that says, filth freaks, filth freak crossbreed, essentially. So this includes people like Hope, Haley, the boy Henry, Klaus, and Marcel, because they are the difference. They are the abomination. They are the exceptions amongst the groups. They are different for, many different reasons. So, and that's leading why Klaus is that's why this is all happening. This is all happening because they are afraid of us being different. So the only way to respond in kind is by fear as well. And, and initially Ivy was kind of looking at it, she's like, honestly, Klaus has got things planned out. The fact of the matter is he's tiptoeing the line, but he's on the right side of things. But what set him off was getting in a box a piece of Haley's flesh, and that's what set him off. He killed the werewolf and the witch. And obviously Vincent came in time to stop him from doing anything to Josh. Which Josh's whole situation is he's pissed off at Marcel. Because the thing is, Marcel's come back trying to run things, but it's you haven't run things in such a long time. It's been me and the other vampires running things, but you're acting like the city's still yours. And when I have your back when no one else does, you're not there to help me. It's well, to be fair, Klaus killed him, knocked him out temporarily, so it's his fault. But in his mind, it's no, you bat Klaus's play, and now we're here where we are. Two people are dead. It's feeding into the division of the groups, because it's oh, we came together for this one reason, but it seems that was Klaus's plan all along. Because like I said, he needs to lead by fear. Because when he broke it down, which groups fell in line? The witches helped. The werewolves were willing to die to find their alpha. But who were the most resistant? The vampires. In particular, one lady, the new face in town. And you even saw the smirk she had when everything was kind of going down in the episode. Makes me think she's definitely one of the head people behind this. Especially because we know how she feels about hybrids anyway. I did that moment where they were the lady from the wolves, who was kind of taking care of Henry, and that vampire lady were going at it, and Marcel was are you stupid? Let me make this both clear to you. If something happens to Josh, I will bury you both with him. So obviously Marcel went into this with the best of intention too. But I think when it's all said and done, it's something that Klaus kind of convinces Marcel. The fact that to protect his family, to save his family, to save Haley, they can't be the good guys. They have to play the bad guys' roles. And that's the sad thing is you alienate all the people around you, but if it means protecting your family, it's a sacrifice that Klaus has made and constantly will do, No matter what the circumstances are. It's just he's that desperate to find Haley because it's I don't, because especially under these circumstances, because it's not even just, he does care about Haley too, not only just because she's Hope's mom. Like I said, she is part of this family, and he can't lose anyone else. He already lost Elijah. He's not about to lose Haley. He's not about to let Hope lose her mom, So He's willing to do anything. Like, if he has to play the villain role, if he needs everyone to hate him, to fear him to get done what he needs to get done, then he'll do it. You even see Marcel doing that too, like being like, oh, I'm setting in new strict rules. Vampires, no more daylight rings, because they know it was one of the vampires that had to have kidnapped her. Because this involves Marcel just as much, because he is just the same thing as, like, because no one's going to look at him as the same, because he's no longer a vampire, because he's got the werewolf venom in him, so he's something else entirely as well. So it seems like that's what this is all about. Interestingly enough, it kind of fits, because at the end of the episode we see that, like, Klaus is like, oh, this has to deal with something, enemies he thought he buried long ago, and he flips a coin over. It's a Nazi coin, and it's like, well, that kind of makes sense, because this is all about ill crossbreeds. Ill, you're disgusting. You're these. And it's like, no. So that kind of fits, because it's like, oh, the purity of each of the supernatural groups is threatened by the Michelson family, of like what it is, and that includes Marcel, like them being abominations. That seems like to be the focal point of the season, like of this main antagonist. It seems like they're coming after the Michelson family specifically, or maybe it's just because they would do this even if it wasn't a Michelson family, just the Michelson family make an easy target, because some of them aren't, just one or the other. Side note, has Hope always had that ridiculous healing factor, kind of like a vampire? Has that always happened? I don't remember that really being a big thing, or remember maybe the earlier seasons talked about it. I don't remember that. I knew obviously she's like a super powerful witch, but I didn't remember that healing factor aspect of it all. Like, I knew about her blood's property obviously, but I don't remember. I don't know. Is this the first season they've introduced it? It can't be. They have it, but I don't remember anything happening last season to kind of resort to that, or even like before, I don't know. Maybe stuff happened when she was a baby. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. Obviously, Vincent's pissed at Klaus for what he did. It's like, you killed a witch. The fact of the matter is, you come after the witches again. The fact of the matter is, you will pay for it, because you'll be going to war with me. So obviously you can see the look on Klaus's face. He didn't want things to end up the way they did, but he did, because like I said, it was all tactical. Even Ivy admits it, but things were played to a point where it's like he was tiptoeing on the line, and it just took one wrong move to kind of set him off. Because for one, he doesn't have Elijah to kind of keep him in line, to keep him in check. But to be fair, under these circumstances, who the hell says even Elijah would be calm, cool, and collected under this, especially when it comes to Haley? So maybe it's kind of a good thing. You might think you're dealing with, Klaus the unpredictable, and it's like, when it comes to Haley, I think Elijah could be just as deadly, if not just as terrifying, if not more so, when it comes to Haley. So maybe they looked out with him being under these circumstances. So, because all the while, like, you have Freya visiting Hope, because she ends up explaining to Hope, because Hope's doing whatever she can to try and find Haley, but it doesn't work. But Freya came there to kind of tell her, it's like, yeah, the witches kind of are afraid that you might be the end. It's like, of what? My family, New Orleans, the world? And it's like, well, no one knows. Like, maybe she'll, because it's basically saying, like, Hope could kind of flow in any direction. Like, currently it's like, oh, she's going to be the destruction of everything, but maybe she's going to be the one that kind of, maybe kind of being the destruction, as in she's the one who ends up bridging the gap between all the different groups. Mother is a hybrid, formerly a wolf. Her dad, a hybrid, formerly a vampire. Obviously, that's kind of skating it a little bit. But obviously, that family of Haley, Klaus, and Hope of being something else. Obviously, Hope being kind of like a hybrid herself, but also having witch's power. So, like, she can bridge the gap. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be, destruction of, destroying the foundations of what kind of keep these groups separated, that at the end Hope might be the one. They tried so hard to kind of keep things united these past 7 years, but it was always going to be like a temporary fix. Maybe Hope is the permanent fix, that she can be the gap that bridges everything and every group together, potentially, so. Because a big part of her thing is like, yeah, like, Freya tries to tell her, like, you need to, like, control your emotions, like, because everyone's afraid, like, if something happens, like, if you experience loss, or, something traumatic happens, or you lose control of your emotions, you could do a lot of devastation. Because, that doesn't just apply to her. That applies to the freaking Michelson family. That's the Michelson family in a nutshell. When shit doesn't go right for anyone else. That's when things get super bloody, So it isn't just her. That kind of fits as like a Michelson thing, because even Freya kind of admitted that's kind of like her whole thing too. So I mean, in the long run, this might prove to be the best option. I mean, it's kind of like I'm sure they're all feeding into what the enemy wants because now all three groups are segmented. It's like the witches are going to keep to themselves, the vampires keep to themselves, the werewolves are going to keep to themselves. Obviously, the biggest problem is going to be the vampires, which is kind of the point. Like, we need to keep an eye on them. They're most likely going to be striking back. I'm sure Josh is going to be leading the front, though. He's going to probably be manipulated into leading the front because it's like, yeah, Marcel's out of his damn mind, so it's Klaus, but like no one can really step to either one of them because it's like, well, because Klaus is a hybrid and so Marcel's got wolf's venom in him too. So because for him too, and it's something I thought was kind of this powerful moment from Klaus is when he was talking about the whole fear thing. It's like they treated Haley like an animal. They're treating people like them being different, you know. And that's such an interesting element to kind of play into the show because I feel like it's never really come up before because once again, even throughout the entire series, whether it be the originals or the Vampire Diaries, like there have not been that many differences like of like people of different things. Like obviously vampires, werewolves, and witches. That's kind of the three main groups. Everyone kind of falls in between there, and obviously humans. But like obviously you have people like I said, Klaus, Marcel, Hope, and Haley being huge exceptions to that, and they're threatening because they are not. There's nothing else like them. They are the most powerful of their kind, and it's like love that that's kind of a culminating all together in this season of bringing that, which has probably been on because like the longest time it's like Klaus was the only hybrid, which made, you know, obviously on top of just being an original, he's also a hybrid. So he was always deadly. Then the whole situation with Marcel, obviously Haley, Hope, you know, it's almost kind of like it was only a matter of time. And I think it's going to take like whoever this enemy is, like they're going to be inciting all of this, trying to get things to be where they are, where everyone is divided. Maybe this might work in Hope, in Klaus's and Marcel's favor, but it's also working into the enemy's favor too, because now it's going to make everything easier. Like, I don't know what the whole purpose is. Is it going to be like, because obviously the person behind this is a vampire, so it's like, is it trying to get vampires to reign on top, you know? Because vampires were kind of on top even back when Marcel was kind of running things. So it's like supposed to be kind of like doing that same thing and kind of brushing the other groups out, you know, or what this is all going to be about. I'm also curious to see what like what is his name, Roman, the dude that kind of, you know, Hope kind of has a thing for and everything. It's like where his part of the story is going to like go, like going forward from here. Like, you know, is he just kind of like the love interest, or is there a lot more at play here? I mean, to be fair, he's one of the few people that knows exactly who Hope is, which it still hasn't come out at school, so that's good. He's keeping her secret. But I am curious to see what Hope will do because she's desperate to get her mom back because, you know, she blames herself because it's like none of this would have happened if I wasn't so desperate to get my dad back into my life. Like, you know, Haley wouldn't be in the situation she's in right now. Plus the Michelson family isn't. I mean, it makes you wonder, like, I mean, it didn't come up, but it's like, oh yeah, you know, because Klaus tried to throw Rebecca and Cole under the bus. It's like, oh, it could have easily been them. It's like, well, where is, you know, Cole and Rebecca right now? Because the last time we saw Rebecca, she went to go visit Elijah, which even means when she visited Elijah, he knew exactly who she was, you know? So it's kind of interesting because it's something Marcel was getting at in this episode about like Klaus's mind being clouded. And it's like, was it really clouded? Yes, he didn't really know what to do. He was kind of a little lost because he didn't have Elijah. But you see, Marcel is standing there trying to fit that role. Can he be Elijah? Can he be the one to kind of anchor Klaus down? I don't know. Maybe under different circumstances, but with Haley missing and just what this means for Hope, I'm sure Klaus is going to. I'm not sure this would be a circumstance that Marcel could necessarily keep him under control, but I mean, who knows? Maybe he can. Like I said, I'm curious also what the witches are going to do. Obviously, like, they're not going to help search for Haley. I mean, maybe they are because they know if, like, we get Haley back, we can get rid of this whole Klaus situation. So it's like, maybe they'll do it, but they won't work with Klaus or Marcel on this. So, I mean, the way Vincent kind of makes it sound like, I'm not going to help you with anything, but I think even he is like, he'll do it nonetheless because it is for Haley. He just won't do it. I mean, especially because he knows like this might influence the whole situation, whatever Hope's thing ultimately ends up being, you know. Even saying like he almost thought he wanted to believe that Klaus could, almost change, but just like, nope, there you are, back on top of the food chain yet again. So, like I said, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. And now moving on to this week's episode of Colony. A lot of interesting things we learned about kind of the state of things in this episode. Obviously, big focus was at the beginning we had, I always forget, is it Helena or Helena, the governor? We see her kind of being taken to a room. And it seems like, I guess it's all the different leaders kind of running things probably all across. I don't know. I mean, there were different people talking different languages, so it probably wasn't just like, oh, leaders are just the U.S. It's probably like colonies all across the world. And it turns out that the factory was destroyed, which is crazy. Because let's not forget, Will's friend was working at the factory too, which is kind of sad to think about it. I mean, like, we already saw him there in season 1, but it's just like there was a friend of Will's there. That's kind of sad. I mean, also, everyone that was in the LA block that was potentially, during their whole rendition thing, is like, they were sent there too. So doesn't that mean that, Katie's sister's going to potentially, not unless they're somewhere else. I mean, because Helena was talking about the fact that there were kind of some reserved people that they can kind of put do what they need to in around that area in a different block. So I'm guessing maybe that'll kind of deal with Maddie in that sense. Just kind of what I'm kind of thinking. Kind of like that would be kind of super messed up to just like kind of kill her off like that. Because I mean, especially the way season 2 ended makes you think like there was going to be something more to it. So she might be part of that group that's kind of being kind of set up in a temporary factory situation. So that's what it seems like this was about. The factory was targeted because it's like that is where they are making weapons. Because it seems like the host, the Raps knew that this was coming. So it seems like whatever the situation is on Earth was preparation. They ran away from this other enemy. They came to Earth to like bulk up or supply. Who knows if they actually ran away or whether while they're off somewhere else fighting the war, there are some that came here to Earth to kind of arm up and prepare. Maybe Earth has the resource, because they were scoping out Earth for a while, so maybe they found out Earth has the resources they need to kind of make this weapon possible, make whatever it is they have planned possible. Because it seems like the Raps weren't expecting these others to get here so soon, so either they were preoccupied, or I guess that means whatever forces they had probably keeping them at bay got wiped out. So the fact is that they're here so soon. So, because even the lady was kind of like, yeah, that means if we're not careful, this war between the Raps and this other group are going to start spilling on over to Earth. I mean, we saw a little bit now, but it's going to get a lot more. It's kind of interesting that I like that direction they're taking with this season. Like, yeah, it's literally about to turn into like kind of intergalactic war, and Earth might get caught up in the middle. Some space war. I think I made that joke in the premiere, like some Star War. Nevertheless. So that's very interesting to kind of know about that. I mean, it kind of fits with what we see about Broussard's storyline, which is kind of interesting. It's weird seeing him walking around like the LA colony, the LA block, like just everything empty. Surprisingly enough, he actually comes across a mom and her son. Again, because the way she explained it, it's like they hid out in the green zone, but the drones still sweep through to make sure they didn't miss anyone. So he tries to get them out of town. But the way the dispatcher talks about it later on, play by Batonless, which obviously like so much, obviously currently Poison Ivy on Gotham. She also popped up in Tomorrow People. She's been on The Flash. She was in Frequency, the TV show. She's done a lot. So it's kind of, I kind of knew she was already in the show just because of, I saw previews with her in it. So I was like, oh wow, it had no, so that was kind of neat. But, it's kind of sad because at the end of the episode, like, she ends up talking about the fact is that her group was attacked, which I'm kind of like, I don't know. It's just a little fishy. She's the only one to survive, but that means also, I guess enough time passed. Like they never probably showed you, but probably a good amount of time passed for her to get the information she got from, the little boy Owen, talking about the fact is that like, oh yeah, Broussard, like he likes to do, puzzles because, Owen helped him with some of them, so it's kind of sad. The family he tried to help too, like, got wiped out. Like she's kind of the only one amongst her like group. Because I like how they had the whole thing kind of like trying to make it seem like they were truckers or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, dispatch. Yeah, this is Route 8. We got it's like, oh, checking. She even talked about checking in on her drivers, kind of make sure they're in like a good, sane psychological state. So. It seems that basically from which mad props to Broussard for having the calm and composure to get all those shredded documents and start piecing them together. Because you did start seeing something known as a project known as Sea Spray, biological weapons. It seems like that's what the whole point of this is. The real reason why they wanted rendition of the LA block. It isn't probably just about everything that's happened so far. It's probably because they knew this attack was coming. They probably sensed it out in the distance, and so this was all meant to clear out the LA block so that they could prepare and build their biological weapon here. Because eventually they're going to like repopulate the colony under new government. Because apparently the same thing is happening in Seattle. So, for what purpose and how would you repopulate that? Like, are you moving people from a different block there to start working on your biological weapon? You know, are people going to be fuel for this biological weapon? Because it was like biological targeting. So the things they're fighting must be biological to some sense. Like the raps themselves seem like it. So like I said, I'm curious to see what this all means. Like maybe, like I said, this also might tie into all the people they're gathering, because maybe they need people of a certain like background, like Will with his it wasn't Will like a ranger, and like Broussard's like military, like their tactics. Maybe it isn't necessarily just their bodies, which is I've kind of lumped it. I've always kind of been, since season 2, I've kind of thought like, oh, maybe it has to deal with their bodies. Is like, well, maybe it has something to do with their minds. Maybe they need the minds of humans and their tactics to kind of win this war. I don't know. So we're still no closer to figuring out why exactly they want people, but it is kind of interesting to find out that that's what this is all about. And the fact of the matter is it all for the purpose of building one biological weapon, or are there multiple ones they build? They've already started potentially building one in Seattle, but are they doing the same thing in the colony? So it's like, are these different colonies, like, or blocks or whatever, going to be building pieces to it and then it all comes together? Or are they all individually building their own? It's going to be very interesting to see like what that all entails and what this biological weapon is going to look like exactly. Is it supposed to be more like kind of, because it seems like I said, it's biological targeting, so it makes me wonder, is it supposed to kind of act like it's more of a virus in the sense of it kind of like seeks out biological stuff to wipe it out type of thing? I don't know. We do see Broussard and Dispatch leaving at the end of the episode. They go through the gateway, which Broussard was like, oh yeah, there's going to be like a skeleton crew. We have to avoid drones and everything. But he goes through and it's like, lights a flare and everything, and there's nothing there. They just go through. So I guess it's just implying that there's no crew there anymore. So meaning that I guess they're not worried about people. Like people aren't too much of a focus in this particular regard. I guess it's just kind of like all the guards were told, like, not unless I was missing something. It looked like there might have been something inside the tunnel that they were trying to reference, but the fact is they just passed through like that without much of a trouble makes me think it's like, no, they're simply implying like no guards at all. Not even just a skeleton crew. There was no one there, no drones to even worry about. So I guess it's a situation of like the LA block it's just kind of like, well, who cares? Like, if anyone's here going in and out, let them do whatever they want to. Unless we capture them directly, we don't care, you know? So I don't know. I mean, it's also interesting too because it's not like Broussard probably got everything he could have gotten from those like occupation documents, but I mean, sure, he got a good chunk. Obviously, him and Dispatch are going to go try and find this other resistance camp nearby, so it's going to be interesting to kind of get back to see what they're up to. On the flip side of things, we have the whole Will and them meeting up with their side of the resistance. I do like the whole like, oh, Uncle Alan, like him kind of getting Gracie to lie and stuff like that. Like always kind of, and Alan, you know, Snyder would know best how to like tell a good convincing lie because he's kind of, you know, being a snake or a rat. I did love it that basically like Gracie did a good job and so did Charlie, and he's like, up high, and then Charlie just kind of looked at him like he was stupid. But basically, you know, Gracie started asking questions. It's like, well, you know, if you want us to kind of say so much near the truth, why don't I just tell people that you and my dad work together? Why do I have to be like, oh, you're my uncle or whatever? He's like, well, people won't appreciate the fact is that me and your dad, the stuff me and your dad did together. And she's like, well, what did you do? And he was like, kept you alive. Because they are the reason why the resistance kind of got whittled down a lot. Like, if people found out that Bo, like, even if Will isn't part of the Even if he isn't a quote unquote collaborator anymore, the fact of the matter is he worked hand in hand with Snyder. And if they find out who Snyder is, he's going to be screwed. But if they find out like all that they did, because they're the reason why the LA kind of resistance kind of got dwindled down to what it is, they're kind of the big contributors for that. So it probably wouldn't be good, because they'll probably won't look at it as like, no matter what your situation is, they might look at it as like, no, get a little skittish and think it's a trap, or think like, no, you turned your back on humanity by choosing to work with them, so screw you, no matter what the circumstances may be. I don't know. What's also interesting too is that Snyder brought up his daughter. For whatever reason, I thought Will already knew about his daughter. It's like, no, I guess that was like a kept secret. The last time we saw his daughter, he was giving her one of those passes that he gave to Will at the end of the season, at the end of season 1, so he can go looking for Charlie. Like, he gave his daughter one, and he was just apologizing for everything that kind of happened, because obviously him and his daughter aren't on good terms because of what he did. It's like he can only pick one person, so he chose his daughter instead of his ex-wife. So it's, and that's always kind of a regret of Alan's, of like, I don't know where she is, because obviously he's telling the Bowman family of like, hey, just drop this gauntlet thing and just like, live out happiness, somewhere else. But Katie doesn't want that. It's like, I don't want my children to kind of live in that life, always on the run, always hiding. It's like, if we fight back, we can get back our world. We can get back our freedom. I want them to grow up in that type of world. But, because Snyder's being who he is, who's always been who he is, and thinks like this is a losing war. Like, there's no happy ending for this situation, But even he doesn't know where his daughter is. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't have the connections anymore to really have the pull to look for that, especially now that he's on the run. I mean, to be fair, he's kind of undercover and everything, but still. But the fact is that he's telling the Bowman family to leave it behind makes me think, like, legitimately, he cares for the Bowman family. He doesn't want them to get caught up in this whole situation. It's like, hey, let the gauntlet go to them. The resistance gets taken out. Like, I'm curious, is that what Snyder would want? Because he'd want the Bowman family left alone, because he actually legitimately cares for them, because they've cared and taken care of him. So he wants to kind of do the same, I assume. That's my mindset about it. What was interesting enough, we also learned that basically there's a lot of automatic systems, like a lot of the trucks that transport stuff, even this train, because it's like, oh, well, what if someone sees us on the train, like the conductor or whatever? It's like, no, it's automated, because that's how a lot of supplies, in particular like foods and stuff, gets into colonies and blocks and stuff like that, is through stuff like this. So it's all automated, but it's like, but Bram brought up a good question. He's like, well, who's making the cereal? And then you have like Snyder being like, who the hell am I, Captain Crunch? Which does beg the question, like, who is making it? Are there people somewhere else and being kind of forced in kind of like sweatshop situations? I mean, I guess that's kind of what the factory is. Not unless the reps themselves are just manufacturing it. It's like, I mean, that's kind of an interesting question, but I guess it's kind of I guess the response is supposed to be, shut up, you don't need to know that. But shut up, you don't need to know that. It's not important. Might want to be one of those little mysteries you never get the answer to. Like, it's not that important. It's just like, just know that it happens, So maybe it's one of those things. Like I said, I love that even at this point in time, like, because obviously we still don't know how everything operates under, like, the Raps and their rules and stuff like that. Or as the other resistance group kind of refers to them as cliques. Well, I don't know whether they're specifically referring to the device or the Raps. I think they're calling them. I mean, it makes sense because different people in different places, like, it's like The Walking Dead. It's like, oh, what do you call them? Biters, walkers, depends on the person type of, thing. So, which is funny. I mentioned The Walking Dead because let's not forget the actress who plays Katie. Is it Sarah Wayne Callies? Lori from The Walking Dead. So, kind of interesting, dude, because it's just kind of like spoilers. Well, some stuff went down in The Walking Dead this season that makes you go, it's just kind of interesting. Nevertheless, I'm not going to go there. There's spoilers and stuff like that, so I'll keep my mouth shut. Nevertheless, also, like, the dude who's, like, that comes to meet them, isn't that, I can't remember his name, it's going to bother me. Isn't that Ortega's partner from, Altered Carbon? I think that's the same actor, isn't it? Maybe it's just my imagination, but I think it's him, so. But it's interesting enough with this whole situation is that this camp is like, oh, it's good. We do good work here. We work hard. We do good work here. But even the guy was like, yeah, be careful because things get political here. So watch your back, which is kind of like, okay, that's definitely going to be interesting. Because originally it was supposed to be someone that will, if I'm remembering correctly, because I'm blanking a little bit on season 2, but that was kind of the whole point. It was supposed to be someone that Will knew that was leading this group of the resistance. But it turns out he died because there was kind of a raid and stuff like that. So it wasn't good. So someone else is running things now. And that person is kind of pissed at this dude because it's like, yeah, you might have gotten a gauntlet, but it's like you disobeyed orders. So it's kind of like, even though you do good, the fact of the matter is, I guess it's like you going out on your own, you could jeopardize the entire group. So I'm curious to see how this resistance group is run. I mean, because obviously we've only gotten to know one resistance group, and that was Brassard's. I mean, there was a whole Coil situation. We saw how he ran things and how quick he was willing to sell people out just for his own safety. But also how Brassard kind of ran things more in season 2. So, I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this whole situation plays out, because I'm just waiting for something to come about where somebody, whether it's a leader or somebody, I mean, I feel like you wouldn't know who Snyder is just because it's like, well, he ran one specific, like, block, so he's not big time enough for everyone to know exactly who he is. But it does make me wonder, like, I'm just waiting for it to be like, isn't someone be like, wait a minute, aren't you Snyder? It's like, wait, what? Because obviously, like, Gracie, lying came through because she's like, yo, this is my brother, Charlie, doesn't talk a lot. That's my uncle, Alan. He usually talks a lot, but he's not doing it right now, which they bought the lie and stuff like that. Once again, telling truths, lies that are very close to the truth and everything. So, like I said, some very interesting developments. I'm curious to see where all of this takes us in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.